Imagine an ancient empire where the rulers are unapologetically orthodox. We're talking kings who perform massive, grand sacrifices specifically to protect their state religion. But at the exact same time, within that very same empire, massive monuments to a completely different, rival philosophy are being heavily funded and built. So how does a society actually manage that without completely tearing itself apart? Well, today, we're diving deep into the Deccan's first great empire to uncover the secrets of how two totally different belief systems didn't just survive side by side, but actually built one of the most peaceful and prosperous empires in history.
Okay, let's dive into this fascinating paradox right at the heart of the empire. On one hand, you have the kings, and they are claiming to be the ultimate protectors of Brahmanism, right? They're actively performing these grand Vedic sacrifices. But on the other hand, the queens and the general public are doing something completely different. They're pouring funds into these massive Buddhist stupas and actively worshiping the Buddha. So you have the official state rulers pulling in one philosophical direction, while their own families and their citizens are pulling in another. In almost any other part of history, this exact scenario spreads like wildfire into massive conflict. But here, it led to incredible harmony. Let's look at exactly how and when this happened.
Just to ground us real quick, we're looking at the timeline between their rise in the 2nd century BCE and their eventual decline in the 2nd century CE. Now, if you're already familiar with the Satavahanas, you probably know them as this massive economic powerhouse, famous for their sprawling trade networks and incredible maritime power. But as we're going to see in this explainer, their true, lasting legacy isn't really in their trade routes or their ships. Their absolute most remarkable achievement is the philosophical harmony they managed to maintain for centuries during this exact window.
Section 1. The Brahmanical Kings, Guardians of the Vedic Order.
So, to really understand this harmony, we first have to thoroughly grasp the official stance of the people actually in power. The Satavahana rulers, they were not secular in the modern sense at all. They were deeply, firmly rooted in orthodox Brahmanism. And the crucial point here is just how seriously these kings took those orthodox roots. Take the official title Eka Brahmana, which translates to the unique Brahmin. This was a title held by the great Satavahana ruler King Gautamiputra Satakarni. And listen, this wasn't just some casual description. This was a highly authoritative message about the state's identity. The leadership was unequivocally orthodox.
And they didn't just hold fancy titles either. They took massive actions to reinforce that social order. The Satavahana kings actively went out of their way to revive ancient Vedic rituals. We're talking about performing the incredibly grand, highly complex Ashvamedha Yagna as well as the Rajasuya Yagna. And to make absolutely sure the intellectual continuation of their faith survived, they heavily patronized Vedic scholars. So everything here points to a state that is deeply, intensely invested in promoting and protecting Brahmanism from the absolute top down.
Section 2. Rise of Buddhist patronage, the popular faith. Now here's where the narrative takes a really fascinating turn. Because despite everything we just discussed, despite the kings reviving these massive Vedic rituals and claiming orthodox titles, Brahmanism was actually never forced upon the everyday people. The patronage for Buddhism didn't start with the kings. It started with the royal ladies and wealthy merchants who heavily funded it. Then, the common public quickly followed suit, throwing this massive grassroots support behind the faith. It grew so much that the Deccan region literally transformed into a global hub for Mahayana Buddhism. This was organic, grassroots growth happening right under the noses of orthodox rulers.
And honestly, the impact of this grassroots support just cannot be overstated. Because the public and the royal ladies created such a deeply supportive environment, brilliant minds were able to thrive. For instance, the world-renowned philosopher Acharya Nagarjuna actually flourished under their shade. And this is a massive takeaway for us. When a society allows popular faiths to be supported without heavy-handed state interference, it cultivates an environment where global intellectual giants like Nagarjuna can emerge and completely change history.
Section 3. The Philosophy of Coexistence, Active State Support.
Now what's really interesting about this slide is how the kings actually reacted to this massive rise in Buddhism. Did they just turn a blind eye? Did they begrudgingly tolerate it? No way. The real secret to the Satavahana harmony is far more surprising. The kings didn't just practice passive tolerance, they provided active, structural state support. These devout Orthodox Hindu kings actually issued official royal decrees specifically for Buddhist monks or bhikkhus. They legally granted them tax-free lands. Guys, they even granted them entire villages. Think about that for a second. The exact same kings performing the Ashvamedha Yagna to champion Brahmanism were actively signing away state resources and land to ensure the rival philosophy of Buddhism could physically and economically survive. That right there is the true engine of their coexistence.
Section 4. A Golden Age Legacy, Intellectual Freedom.
You see, when you have a state that firmly knows its own identity, but actively and structurally supports the different beliefs of its people, you don't get a collision of religious forces. You get a golden age. And that brings us to the core takeaway here. Different faiths don't have to collide. They can co-create history. The Satavahanas absolutely proved this by allowing the queens, the merchants, and the general public to build up Buddhism, while the kings maintained their Brahminical duties. They seamlessly co-created an empire defined by intellectual freedom. It is a brilliant historical blueprint showing us that ideological differences, when they're managed with active support and respect, are actually a society's greatest strength.
So, what can this ancient model of harmony teach us today? We live in a world where differing viewpoints constantly feel like they're on a collision course, right? But the Satavahanas showed us, right there in the Deccan centuries ago, that it is entirely possible to hold your own beliefs fiercely, while actively supporting the rights and institutions of those who believe something completely different. Take a moment to reflect on how that model might apply to our modern world.